If you don't know me, my name is Robert Linkle. I am the owner of trainingtheolderadult.com and the Training Older Adult Bunker, which is our live studio here. I started as a personal trainer in 1999, right out of high school, and I've worked with every population, with every position in the industry, as a floor supervisor to an independent contractor to an employee to a PT manager to the fitness director, and all the way up to running my own business. So I've done quite a bit in the profession, and the reason I like to say that is wherever you're at in this profession right now and your progression of your career, if there's ever anything I can do to assist you, I've been in a lot of different situations, different shoes. I'm always happy to assist and lend some advice, especially right now. We've all had an extremely challenging year, and I think a lot of people are bouncing back. And if there's anything I can do to help you, please feel free to reach out and let me know. Tomorrow, my wife and I are going to be doing a new little series we came up with here called Diaries from the IR. Between the amount of injuries, the injured reserve injuries that I've had and that she has had, we've had some really great experiences. We're going to talk mainly about one specific limitation or injury that we've had at a time, but we're just going to share our experiences, kind of talk about it, give some people some advice. I've had literally at least 100 people contact me and say, I'm going to have a hip replacement. What kind of advice can you give me? I've done a hip series. I've done a couple of videos on YouTube to kind of help people, but I like to offer like an open forum to do Q&A and to just kind of discuss. So Keegan and I will be chatting about that. This one in particular will be on the hip. So you'll get my personal experience. You'll get her secondhand experience coming from, the second person that's there to kind of help and assist. But she's had quite a few surgeries as well. And we'll be able to, as the weeks kind of go on here, pick each other's brains, share our experiences. And hopefully we connect, with you, a client that's going to have a similar experience or has had it. And just hearing the story and asking some questions only makes you a little bit better, at your position. So that's coming up tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It will be recorded. It's on Facebook Live. I will record it and post it up on our YouTube channel, which is just my name. You get a chance to pop on there and follow or subscribe. That would be awesome. So when we look at dual tension training, what is dual tension training? Where did it come from? It's just kind of something I've made up. I've seen a couple of different professionals do very similar things, but with a very specific intention in mind. I started doing this for a shoulder injury that I had. I'm going to share that to you and just share that with you and show you in just a second. I'm still struggling, still kind of dealing with that, but this has been a huge help for me. And then I saw John Russin doing it once with a row, and I thought, yes, there's something to this. And I started applying it to multiple different lifts that we do, and we've had tremendous success with our clients. Really, like breaking through plateaus is something I would say. You get to a certain point and you're like, I'm this strong, whatever that is, really having a hard time either increasing my range of motion with that load or exceeding that load or accelerating that load, something different with tempo, like something's got to change. So when we get an opportunity to place stress at a secondary angle of attack at the joint and just recruit more musculature, that's really what's been a great breakthrough for us. So the upper body ones are, I will say they are pretty good to great. The lower body ones are fantastic. Like the lower ones, we've really seen a ton of improvement at the hip, has really been a big one. And the overhead shoulder, the single arm overhead press has been a huge, huge improvement as well. So I'm excited to share those with you. As we go through here, this just kind of, solidifies and kind of shows where we're at. This is just in the US. So shoulder injuries, 50% of our population has an acute shoulder injury, 15% chronic. There's 53,000 replacements each year with the shoulders. That's a pretty big number considering the shoulder replacement's rather rare compared to the hip and the knee. So 53,000 is pretty big. Frozen shoulder is really the greatest injury that we see as personal trainers, or I would say the more common limitation is just the client not being able to reach to vertical, right? As they go to press overhead, they think they're at vertical and they're like, yeah, I've achieved an overhead press, but we're 15, 20 degrees short. The elbow's not locked. They just can't quite get to that position where you can see their face on the tricep side and their arm actually ends up like behind them as far as their face goes, it ends up behind them. And so to get to that position can become extremely challenging. So this is one of those actions that we do to help us achieve that. The lower back, 31 million acute injuries. It's the number one reason to miss work. It's the number one, limitation out there amongst all Americans. And you see, how many surgeries they're performing. This is just discectomy, which is trimming away the ruptured herniated disc that's pushing onto a nerve, and not including any of the others, the fusions, any of the bracing, bracketing, any of the other stuff they do. That's just discectomies. They do 300,000 of those a year. And the most common injury we're finding with the lower back is the throw out, right? I threw my back out, or I hurt my back, I tweaked my back, which is mostly like a quadratus laborum strain, or, a lateral facet collapse, something along those lines, where one musculature really got over stressed and strained and the other side was either on slack or relaxed, and everything goes out of whack, and then you're all kinked and sideways and jacked up for a few days. So being able to recruit a little bit more musculature, range of motion, stability at the hip and the joint sitting below the back is of great help to us. The hip injury, 38% acute, 18% chronic. You see that 450,000 hip replacements each year. Okay, not as much as the knee replacement, but a good second. And the hip replacement is kind of the easier replacement to rehab. There's not a ton to work with range of motion. The knee, you have a lot of range of motion issues that we have to work on, but there's a greater dislocation rate and a greater injury rate with the hip than there are with either the other replacements, shoulder or knee. We see bone spurs a lot with the hip, and though that's a structural limitation, that's something that we trainers can't fix. We can't train people out of a bone spur. There's different traction techniques and different therapies that you can use, but that's a physical therapy realm where you need to really team up with someone to help you with that. Physical therapist, chiropractor, athletic trainer, and so on. So we can work with people and get them very strong and assist at the hip. But when you have a structural issue like that, there really needs to be a surgical intervention or a mass amount of therapy to really help with that. And then with the knee, it's the meniscus tear. That's really the most common injury we're seeing there. Any kind of rotational or torsion or torque at the knee, gets a little tear in there, and then it's just stability-wise just gets worse and worse and worse as people continue to use it. So what are some of the actions? What are some of the, the strategies that we can utilize to kind of address these four, major joints to assist in stability and strength? That's where I think, above all, if we can improve there, we're going to help our clients a great deal. I talked about my shoulder injury. This is a Buford complex right here that you're seeing. The one on the right is a normal shoulder, which has a complete labrum. Okay, so I'm going to move the little arrow here. You guys can see this. It's got the little line pointing to labrum. See how that basically goes all the way around the capsule? So if you look over at the other one, see how the labrum here, there's about 30% of it missing. You guys see that? So that's a Buford complex, that this whole open part of basically the head, the socket, and the shoulder there doesn't have anything securing it down necessarily. The rest of the labrum, of course, is holding in there all the musculature, but if you're relaxed and you lay just the right angle, it can literally slide out. And if you look at that from the side, okay, from my shoulder, this is my shoulder that's hurt there. If I lay spooning with someone, okay, I've got my arm under the pillow, okay, and I'm hugging my wife, sleeping, laying on my right side. She's on her right side. And if I relax my shoulder, okay, I can basically place my shoulder into an anterior push between the floor or the bed and the pressure of me. and my arm being extended, it can literally just kind of slip and pop right out of there. And it hurts so fucking bad. Like it is really a piercing, sharp zing. And when you retract and you pull it back, it's not like it pops out of place. It just displaces a little bit. And when that happens, it's extremely uncomfortable. It's something that's not supposed to happen. It's not supposed to come out of there. So it hurts really bad. And then it just aches for days afterwards. This happens laying on the floor, watching a TV show with my kids. Anything where I'm on a hard surface, laying on my right side, it'll happen. If I'm reaching behind in the car, grabbing and pulling, this can happen. So this Buford complex affects, I think, 8 to 12% of our population. There are quite a few athletes, pro athletes in the world that have this. What's the guy from the Rockets that just got traded not too long ago? James Harden. He has it, and another guy, one other point guard, I forget his name, but they're the two kind of like poster childs for what you can do to rehab this and how to assist in it. And really, it's just building the musculature around that capsule to help kind of lock it down. But you still need good mobility about that to be an athlete, to be a person successful with all of our other movements. So that's where this is all going to come in, okay? And this is the one that if there's one lift that you take away from today that I think is really going to help you, it's going to be this guy, okay? So I'm going to show you a band plus a kettlebell single arm row, a band plus an overhead, a band plus an upright, a band plus a bench press, and then I'm also going to show you a pullover too. I didn't put this on there, but the reason I want to include it, what I define as dual tension is one consistent load being acted upon by the band at 90 degrees, okay? So you've got to have this 90-degree action. You see where the weight in my hands, straight up and down, the first tension of the two is the weight, the 20-pound dumbbells I'm holding straight down on me. The second tension is the band that's then pulling me backwards, right? And I'm having to overcome that band pulling back by activating more serratus, lat, pec, bicep, posterior delt, rhomboid, trap, lat, teres major, like basically before, if I was just pressing the dumbbell, I would get some agonist antagonist activation, but not much because it doesn't have to act on anything. It just needs to stabilize. So I have more recruitment, even though the action is exactly the same. I have another action to resist, to not allow to happen, which is that band pulling me backwards. So it just helps engage more musculature at the joint while you do the action. And before you know it, either an increased range of motion occurs, or you just feel stronger and you can start pressing more load over your head because you're recruiting more muscle to help you. In the case of the pullover, we don't get 90 degrees. It's more like 30 or 45 maybe, but I still want to show it to you because it's still a pretty good piece to put in there. So really we have 5 things I'm going to show you, okay? And then just a couple announcements of stuff that I have coming up here. We just completed OTOA, which is online personal training for the older adult. It was a great course. I had so much fun teaching it. It's available all year long. It's $299. It's 7 episodes. It goes from how to talk to a client on the phone through setting up Zoom and all the way through how to train, how to program, what microphones to use, everything. We cover it all. So that's available for the rest of the year. It's all library. You guys get to see it all. Plus you got, a 40 or 50 exercise library in there. And then if you don't currently follow us and do our newsletter, if you sign up today or really any time, you get this free video for training clients with lower back limitations is one of our features for the month here. So if you have any interest in any of that, please feel free to check us out, trainingtheolderadult.com. And the TOA method, the complete course is coming up on April 20th. This is the one like super big course that we teach a year that covers everything that we do. I've taught all these little pieces over the last couple of years, how to do power training with older adults, how to do floor-based activities older adults, how to program for older adults, how to assess older. We've taught all these pieces, but I've never taught all of it in one piece from beginning to end, everything that I know at, I would say, like a 2-year entry level status. And then we have our master's course that comes up in August, which is, 3 years plus or going beyond. And we just dive deep into program design. Like that's all brand new. I'm super excited stuff to teach. If you've done any of the complete method courses in the past, it's about 20% of what I've taught. They're 80% new. So it's a lot of good stuff if you are interested. All right. So let's look at, I want to save the overhead press for last. So let's look at bench press first as our option, our first exercise. This is so much more graceful to get into when you have the trainer, right? That I could put it in. So when you see me, you're like, it looks kind of goofy because I'm doing it by myself, right? If I had my trainer here or a workout partner or something like that, it would be much easier to get into position. And again, you want to be in a position where you get enough tension, but not so much where you can't do the action correctly. That's where I think the orange band, the 1/4 inch band works great. Maybe a Rogue red band 2-inch, not the blue is too much. Maybe a Perform Better 1/2 inch black. Again, they're pretty tense. If anything, I would do 2 orange bands if you wanted to try to increase the tension a little bit, because a lot of times the 1/4 inch, and I know you're like 2/4 equal half, they don't, not with this kind of tension. In 1/2 inches they do, I get that. But as far as the amount of tension that this places on it, 2 of these is better than going up to the next tension band, because you want to feel it. You don't want it to overcome you. So my end result, where the weights are going to end up at the completion of the rep, is where I need the 90 degrees of the band to happen. So I have this anchored high about, sternum height, to when I'm laying on the bench here and I press up, my hands will finish here. That's going to give me my 90-degree angle, okay? I take my 2 dumbbells. This is where it looks goofy to do it by yourself, and you put them inside the band. Now, let's say you want to bench 70s. This is going to be very difficult. That's where you need a partner or a trainer, okay? So these are 15s, not a big deal. I just kind of throw them in there, right? And then I'm going to walk out to my bench. I'll have a seat and bring into position to bench my band. Now we have a triangle tension is what we want to incorporate. So I'll kind of show you here from the side. See my triangle between both hands, and then the weight around my wrist going back to my anchor. So I have 3 points of contact tension-wise that I'm working on. I have the weight that's straight up and down, and then I have the tension that's pulling me back, but I also have the tension that's pulling my hands together, right? So I'm kind of pushing apart, and I'm engaging here in kind of like an isokinetic type of way. And then I'm going to descend and just perform my traditional like neutral grip. You can maybe go to 45 degrees. I'm not a big fan of 90-degree pronated bench press. I think that stresses your shoulder quite a bit. There's a lot of internal rotation. So I'd say 45, if not neutral. And then a new technique, which is difficult to do with the bands. It's a lot easier with fat bells because it's a sphere around your hand instead of these 2 weights on each end, is to rotate pinkies to the ribs, thumbs at the top. This external rotation and deep flexion, and then back to neutral or pronated at the top, really works a comfortable angle of attack here for your shoulders. If you have any labral issue, bicep tendon, anything about the AC joint that really stresses with internal rotation, this position here is super comfortable. I wasn't able to bench for probably 2 years, and that rotation plus this action of the band was what got me back to being able to bench press again. So ideally, I would take my 70s, tip them up, get into position, and then my partner would tip the band, wrap it around my wrist, and then I'd be able to rep out my set, right? And then when I'm done, they would take the bands off, and then I would be back, back to action. So technique-wise, hi guys. Technique-wise, partner here, weights come in, and I would loop over. And you literally want the band to just sit like right at the base of your wrist. So it's at the furthest part of the lever, and you're in, a decent position. It's not going to slide up and down your arms. Feels nice and comfortable. All right, so chest press variation, bench press variation. Doing this with a bar could be kind of tricky. I don't barbell bench press. I do some Swiss bar, okay? I like the Swiss bar, again, the neutral position, the shoulders. When I say I do mean for me personally, but I mean for my clients as well. You'd have to go back probably to Deirdre when I was training her for a powerlifting competition like 4 years ago, where we actually did barbell bench press. You have so many different makeups of the shoulder, so many different imbalances, impingements in this. You can just rotate and move a dumbbell or a fat bell to wherever you want, okay? And I think that's so much more comfortable. When I keep talking about the fat bells, if you guys haven't seen these, I have 2 complete sets, and my prediction is that these will take over the world of weights in terms of we will get rid of dumbbells and start working with these in the future. I think we just need more research to support this. From a arthritic position in the hand, the wrist, the elbow, the shoulder, drastic improvements for myself and 80% of our clients when we switch to these guys. And the basic explanation for it is like holding a barbell versus a hex bar. You're in the center of the weight, center mass, versus it being on either end. And that's very similar to this idea, is that I can circumduct and move the weight about, and it's pretty much in the center of my hand, where with a dumbbell, I'm stabilizing the weight on either end. And lateral stability up and down, I'm pretty good with, because that's the weight that I handle. But where are all my injuries? Forward and back, right? But from carpal tunnel to all my flexions and extension issues, impacts, contacts, push downs, whatever they are, we need strength stability to circumduct about that. So I think this is a huge piece for us. The reason I teach with dumbbells is you guys can't see the rotation of my hands with a fat bell. I could be rotating on that bench press and you wouldn't be able to tell. But if I hold a dumbbell and do it, you guys can see it turning, right? So I teach my clients online. I teach with you guys online with these, so you can see the movement that goes about. But I think these are the best tool that you can get in investment for your clients in the future. All right, next, let's go to the row. So row of choice, I like this one with a kettlebell because it gets the contact of the band off the wrist, plus it creates a longer lever for you to work with your client. So the longer that lever, the harder they're gonna have to retract to kind of hold it in place to be able to row it. So low anchor point to get our 90 degrees, and I'm just gonna take my orange band and just loop it over my bell, okay? And then I'm gonna come back to my kneeling position, one knee on the bench, one foot on the bench, and one hand on the bench. Mind you, I've had 3 surgeries on this wrist. That's why I don't do this position. That hurts me. So I go to here. And then I can move my foot out. Nice wide base. We call this a good triangle position. 1, 2, 3 points. My back foot, you guys can see my toe is engaged in pushing. I don't like this position because your patella floats. So anytime we're kneeling, 6-point, bird dog, any of that, toes are always tucked. Engage that kneecap so it doesn't slide around on you, okay? Now I need to be in a position with the bench that when I go to grab this guy, there's already a little bit of tension. We call this a trip hazard, right? As it is now. So you want a trip hazard. So when I grab the weight and bring it back to where I want it in alignment, there's a lot of tension that's ready to pull forward, right? So there's my dual tension. As I finish the rep, I have my 90 degrees or pretty close to it, right? My row and my return. My row and my return. Now this engagement, talk about recruitment of a further, depth inside the armpit. Subscapularis, I've never really felt that other than maybe like while doing a pullover, you kind of feel that like deep internal stretch, but I always thought like, is that serratus or is that my intercostals extending? This is one of the few times that I've really felt my subscapularis, my teres major, like some of those really small muscles, you're just like, wow, I haven't felt like that particular area burn and struggle, with that. The very first thing I showed you guys on the landing page, it says suffer good. That's one of the little coasters that we give our clients. It's one of our little business handouts, and that's kind of our feeling is like, I want you to suffer with these lifts, but you're suffering good. Like it's not hurting me, but it's creating enough of a challenge to inspire change, right? That's a nice way to put it. Like I want it to burn and to feel and to suffer, but in a good way. And so that's one of our strategies. Like, do you feel this? Is it suffering a little bit? Is it suffering good? If you pull and there's a pierce and a pinch and you're like, oh, I got to drop it. Like that kind of thing is damage. That hurts. But if I can do this and I'm just like, man, I feel a whole different level of involvement. It's this dual action of like having basically a overhead, like pull down action isometrically while creating a horizontal rowing action, right? So it really helps secure and just lock down this joint, get your grip, pull to position. Right away, you'll feel it. I'm not even going yet, and I feel my lat and like teres minor, teres major just on to assist me here in stabilizing, and I can just feel so much more work happening here in this row. And if I start to fatigue, you'll see the kettlebell start to drift forward. I know I'm losing. I've got to keep this guy right in alignment, right where I want it at, okay? And that one's just solid, like brute strength. Another really fun piece that you can do with this, we've done it the last 2 days and every other week for the last 4 weeks. So maybe eight training sessions that we've done where we'll do a set and then take the band off and do another set. So we'll do like a drop set, right? To take the tension, and we can either go with like a heavy weight with the band and then get rid of the band, do a heavy set, and then go to a lighter weight even after that. So it's like a tri drop set. Oh, talk about just training to like a maximal fatigue. Heavy with the band, heavy without, and then just a little lighter. 35-pound dumbbell with band, then just the 35, and then like a 25. You won't be able to move your lats the next day. Like, it's such a fatiguing style of training. But we're having to create this because when you're training clients at home, the majority of the time, they've only got like a certain amount of weights. So we've gotten to a point now where we're all pretty strong. So I was like, how do we kind of, without saying you got to go buy dumbbells, which are selling at $5 a pound right now. It's crazy how expensive equipment is. Some of you on from Canada, you can't even get it, right? They can't even ship it over to you. How else can we train? How can we push and technically get stronger? Well, we got to start tearing down. We got to start triplexing, superset drop set, super tri-set drop set, plus a railroad. Like, that's all stuff we teach in that site, in that program as well. But really good stuff, okay? And these are good pieces to incorporate. All right, the next one, let's stick with our pulling actions. We'll go to the upright row. Now, some people are big on upright rows, some aren't. My buddy Evan Osarnai, my bald brother, this is one exercise where he and I, if you looked at it, just, do we think this exercise is good, yes or no? Majority of the time he'll say no, majority of the time I say yes. But he has admitted that if you have, capable spacing and good shoulder actions that will allow this, then go for it. It can be done a proper way, which I'm going to show you, and that is of benefit. But if you don't have that spacing, you don't do these, okay? So as I've said many, many times, if you ever want to quote me on something, quote me on this. There are no bad exercises, just poor programming, okay? And I could look at any exercise and look at that movement and say, well, maybe they needed to improve blank, and always like, why do burpees? And I'm like, because you're in the military and you fall down and you're going to get shot up. You got to get up and run away fast, right? Why do wall ball? Like, there's an explanation of why. Do I think those are great exercises to program for 70-year-old clients with fake hips? No. You know what I mean? Like, it's not bad exercise necessarily. It's just poor programming. So if the upright row, to bring this all back, if the upright row doesn't fit your model as far as your client's abilities and what you've been, then just skip this one. Don't do it, okay? The upright row for me is an extremely comfortable and valuable lift, but there's a very particular way to do it. So let's address that first before we do anything else, okay? The old school way, I'm going to use super lightweight because it hurts me even to just demo this, okay? The way that I learned to do upright rows with a kettlebell or a bar is that you had your thumbs width apart, and that when you pulled your elbows out in front of you, and you wanted to get this high internal rotation, high pull to like target the trap, posterior middle delt, right? The new technique, look at Brad Schoenfeld. He just put together a great article in January, December, somewhere in there. And they showed all these different angle attacks and like freeing at the shoulder and maximal muscle recruitment. And basically it went from elbow height to the ears was the cap of too far, that ideally they wanted the elbows to parallel the shoulders, and that you don't pull up, you pull apart. See how my hands are pulling apart? So with the upright row, you pull to like a T position, and this is super comfortable. I feel trap, I feel delt, I feel rhomboid, I get reverse bicep, so I get my brachioradialis, brachialis, bicep brachialis, like you get that whole, what I would reverse curl and what I would like traditionally upright, I kind of get both of those mixed together. So it's a T high pull position, right? That you would come to here. Very comfortable lift. But again, if you have spacing in the joint and it's comfortable for you, then do these, okay? So let's say client is capable of doing that. You find value. How do we recruit some extra musculature into that to kind of take this lift to the next one? I'm going to finish the lift at my T position, sternum height. So that's where I want my band at 90 degrees, right? So I'm going to take this guy. I'll come up closer and show you guys. But you take the band, go through the handle, and then like you're pulling a hood off, open it and pull the hood over the top of the bell. Now, if I let go of that, it's going for a ride, right? It's hooked on there though, which is the important part, okay? I'll do it one more time and then I'll come up and do a close one, okay? You take the band through the handle, grab, open it up, and peel it back over the top. And now I'm lassoed in there. I don't have to worry about it coming off, slipping over the top. It's not gonna come off of there. And then when I'm ready, I step back to my tension and I pull to my T position. But the whole time, I'm incorporating this retraction of pulling the band towards me while I'm performing my up and pull apart T position, okay? And that gives me that high activation. I feel a very good pump doing this, but I've got this constant engagement in my shoulder where I don't get the down forward internal rotation. None of that like spider, most muscular flex position comes in. You're always pulling back, which is a big cue for us to fix our posture. We look at our posture and say, retract to neutral. So most people are like so, okay? Most older people, 50 and over, are like so. So we got a couple things we're trying to retract. We're trying to retract their head, but the shoulders stay forward, it doesn't help much. So my goal is if I can row you enough to where the reason you're forward isn't because of your cell phone. It's because everything you do in life is in front of you. So we overdevelop our pec and our anterior delt and our bicep, and so everything kind of pulls. So if I can row and get enough posterior strength, I'll kind of find that forward flex to come to a kind of a neutral position. I don't need to like peacock and like pull my shoulders back, and it's not that row where your scapula is touching the back. It's just come to neutral. So that's really what I'm looking for with my high pulls, with my rows, everything. I just want to get back to like a good neutral position, a high postured position, and hope that my head will come back, that my hips will move underneath me comfortably, okay? So to demo that one more time here, I'll take one of these guys off to show you. It's kind of hard to see from back there. All right, so I've got said bell. I'll come up very close and pretend it's hooked up over here. I go through, open, and peel it back over the top, and then I'm in there. Okay, see how that fastens in? Pretty solid, right? Okay, super simple. You're locked in. I do swings from that position. I do squats from that position, giving away a little hint for what I'm going to cover tomorrow. I'll tell you the most comfortable swing I've ever performed is a band self-anchored swing. I did 120 of them this morning. One of my favorite swings, this is coming from a guy who's had 3 hip replacements, 6 hip surgeries. I can still swing, and I'm super comfortable doing it this way. I will show you that on Thursday. Okay, so we benched, we rowed, we high pulled. Let's do the pullover, and then we'll get into the overhead press, okay? And I'll save it. Okay, same setup, over the top, pull over, okay, pull the hood. And then ideally, someone would hand this to you, right, as you're going in, but we've got to take it with us, exceed your tension on your band real quick, and then come. All right, so see where I'm at here? Like, yes, the load is pulling down and the band is pulling back, but as I come to the overhead position, like I lose some of that tension and my angle of attack isn't great. I can move the bench further away, right? But really where I want my greatest tension is right here. When I'm working on that stability at this position, to not let a lot of displacement happen. For me to get great tension here in the band, I would have to be out of screen, right? I'd have to be so far up that you guys wouldn't see probably the bottom half of my body.
but I'm exceeding that orange band so far then, it's kind of beyond the extension of the band where it should be. So really, I just want great tension here. About halfway up, I want that band to kick in and just recruit a little bit extra for me to just finish my lockout, okay? Notice I stop right over my eyes, my forehead is about as far as we want. I don't want to come all the way to 90 degrees because you get like a deload at the shoulder. Maybe not so much with the band on there. You're probably staying more engaged. But in this position, I just want to stay back a little bit, keep my muscles on, right? Work that big stretch and return. And the key to the pullover here is to loosen up your neck, even lift your head up a little bit to make sure that your shoulder blades are taking the tension, and to literally reach that way, right? As far back, like secure that joint by reaching away further. And that recruits more serratus, more lat, okay? More engagement underneath here to open you up. And the beauty of that is that we can train to an overhead position to eventually help our frozen shoulder clients press to that. Because if we look at them, they're full extension and we just tilt them up, they're overhead, they're straight. So now it's not an issue anymore of, is there structural damage or can the arm just not get there? We've seen it get there. We've benched it, we've rowed it, we've pulled it up, we've pulled it over. At some point, we're going to try to press it overhead, okay? And that's where we get to here. So with a medium explanation of this or story of this, when we look at a barbell pressing overhead, a bilateral press, your scapulas are going to engage. As I go to press overhead, they're going to externally rotate and lock down a little bit, and they kind of free open the hood, like the coracoid process kind of comes back, and like everything sits down and up to allow the shoulder to pivot to a vertical position. That's why people that are so anterior dominant, like they can't get their arm there because the hood of the coracoid's like over the top, right? Like everything kind of points, that coracoid points down. I need to like open that little hood up, bring everything back, retract back to neutral. So if I can get to this position for all my rowing, my pulling over, my pull downs, all that, then we can try to get overhead. The point I'm telling you about the bilateral action here is not that we will ever ask our clients to press a bar bilaterally, but they're going to press their suitcase. They're going to grab their grandkid. You guys have seen that commercial, right? I got tagged so many times. I love that commercial, the old man with the kettlebell. Have you guys seen it? I'll briefly tell you about it, but old guy, it's like a 3-minute commercial out in this shed. He grabs a kettlebell and he picks it up and he keeps doing this. And every time he does it, he falls over, he hurts his back. The neighbors are giving him shit. The kids are making fun of him. And then Christmas rolls around and he comes over to his daughter's house and he's got a package. And the little girl, the granddaughter, opens it and it's the star, and he picks her up and holds her up so she can put the star on the thing. And I just cried my freaking eyes out. And I thought it was fantastic because you look at functionality of a lift, like how functional is that? And he truly trained for function, which I thought was super cool, okay? Where am I going with that? I completely lost, I'm just kidding. So that's the idea, is that we want to train for a functionality of, can I push and reach and take both my arms overhead at some point? Yes. Does it have to be at 90 degrees pronated? No. So if I'm going to work a bilateral overhead action, in most cases, I'm going to have one side over the other that's going to be a little better at it, maybe a little more mobile, maybe a little stronger. And it doesn't have to be all three of those. Like I could be more mobile on my right, but stronger and more stable on my left. Point is that they're uneven. And if we continue to do bilateral actions over and over and over again, that unevenness probably won't change because of bilateral dominance. Let's say I'm holding a 40-pound bar and I'm pressing and I just press until I can't press anymore. If I could measure how much work each one's doing, let's say it's 50-50, 50-50. And as I start to fatigue, it's going to be like 55-45. Even though I can keep it level, my dominant arm is going to be like, you're starting to blow it. Don't ruin this for me, right? Like we can keep going, so I'll just do a little more. But we're really good at fooling others that watch and like, oh, I'll just kind of shift a little bit of it to one side. I'll just lean a little this way. It's little tiny changes. So that's bilateral dominance. So how do we come out of bilateral dominance? We train each action individually, unilaterally, but with a bilateral recruitment. And so that's the tricky part. That's where things really get tough, okay? So how do I get a bilateral recruitment? You push into a post while pressing overhead, or you pull in while pressing overhead. Either one of those will give you the opportunity to simulate that scapular engagement that goes bilateral, right? But one arm at a time to hopefully equal up some of the imbalances. So if we're going to reach to overhead and say, like, let's try to increase to overhead, I'm doing all that stuff first, is basically what I want to say, before you just say, like Rob said, take them overhead now, okay? You got to show that we can get overhead with both arms independently first, then we'll go and do this action. Good? So dumbbell of choice, client has done this. We know they are capable. They are good to go. My hand at highest extension, that's where my anchor is, because that's where I'm going to finish at 90. I put my hand in the band about the wrist, put my dumbbell in my hand, my spot arm. I'm engaged. I'm stepping forward to tension, bicep to ear, return, bicep to ear. I call it the cookie jar. And we can all do this. Right? One of the best tests we ever did. This guy came in and he goes, I want everybody to reach up as high as they can. And then he goes, now go higher. And everybody could just reach up like an extra inch or just an extra fingertip, right? I literally want each client like you're reaching into the cookie jar. Like, give me everything you got, get all the way up there as high as possible. Even if you turn a little, like a little tilt of the sternum, a little reach in there, we do that. We do it all the time. No one's like, you gotta stay square. It's gotta be 50-50, bro. You're gonna blow out your back. Come on. Like, I can get a little rotation in here as I come up, because I do that when I'm getting shit out of the closet, right? Doing whatever I'm doing, or getting cookies. I don't eat any cookies. I eat a lot of cookies. I'm about 10,000 cookies ahead of most of you guys. All right, engaged. Reach, bicep to ear, return, bicep to ear, return. There's a deep recruiting engagement in my shoulder that is resisting this guy from yanking me backwards. So I'm getting this like armpit strength engagement that I really, really like. And that to me is like that subscapularis, you know, that deep, like behind, like pec major-ish, like right around in that like armpity area. When you get massaged there, it hurts. Like that musculature is on, and it's not on when you're just doing the dumbbell by itself, okay? You guys can feel this. You try it. Do a weight that's like manageable, but it's hard. Okay, if you just hold a 5 and do it, you won't feel anything on either side. Like, hold a weight where you're like, okay, I could do 8 to 10 of these and that's it. Then put the band on and be like, oh wow, like there's a whole, I could do 15 of these now, because you're just recruiting more musculature to help you do the action. But it's the same movement you always do. So we get good on right, we get good on left. Now it's time to double it up. We grab both implements, bring them both inside. Step out to tension. Remember our 3 points? Tension from the right, from the left, and in between here. So I'm resisting all 3. Press, reach overhead, return. Press, reach, return. And we want to finish this like through the uprights. Every time I want to see their face on this side, not on this side. You hear me? Right? Like here, not so much their head moving, but their arms just getting to that high finished position every time they come up. And that deep-rooted engagement, that extra musculature allows it to happen. If you guys could have seen me August of last year, Dan McLean, our PT, he would do just basic little test, internal rotation, and he'd push on my arm, and he could push 2 pounds of pressure on I would buckle, right? This Buford complex, plus I have a supraspinatus tear. Those two comboed with, I'm sure, arthritis and whatever else. I've got arthritis all over, it seems like, right? Like that combo, it just seemed like to me I was never going to be able to overhead press again. And with his therapy, but also engaging and starting to do this, just finding more ways to train like pretty traditional movement patterns, but engage extra recruitment, just really locked down my joint. It gave me more security, and it gave me an increased range of motion to where I felt strong enough to start increasing my loads again. And after doing maybe 60 to 90 days of good overheads and good high pulls and good rows, I tried to bench press again. And to my surprise, with that rotation, I can bench. I'm up to, it's not anything to brag about. I can do 50s. you know, I always wanted to do like hundreds or something. I never did, but there used to be a time where I was very strong and that was a good lift for me, not great, but I got down to where like 20s hurt my shoulder every single time, to the point where I'm just like, forget it. I'm just not even gonna mess with this anymore. How am I gonna get back to this? I would protect my arm and it just hurt constantly. That's no way to live. It's no quality of life. And so through that experience, this development, this strategy kind of came about. And I didn't really know what to call it, so I just started saying, well, it's two tensions, so we'll call it dual tension. And all along, I've been doing it with my hips for my rehab the whole time. So now it's just a little bit more organized and strategized, and we'll share that on Thursday. But this gives you a pretty good idea of how you can incorporate this. Now, it's not just adding a band, it's adding the band at 90 degrees. Because I've had people who are like, yeah, I put a band around the landmine and I press it. Well, that's counter to it, and that is the load. Like, this is a secondary load, but it has to be at 90 degrees. It has to be a different angle of attack that requires more recruitment. Band down with dumbbells that are already pulling down, that's just more hard in the same direction, right? I need more hard in a different direction. That's where the extra recruitment comes in. I think that's it. Any questions? Feel free to fire away. You guys type in, I'll come over and check them out, and we can run from there. All right. Let me roll up to the top here and see what everybody says. My internet's not working. Hopefully this is recording. Absolutely. I got it all recording. The upright row. Can you use 2 kettlebells and 2 bands to allow for more space in the shoulders? Great question, Melissa. So let me show you a couple tricks that I do with the uprights, okay? When I swing a kettlebell, I find the narrow handle of the bell, not that I'm a really big person. I'm 6'4", my shoulders are more broad, I guess, than the average person, but they're much bigger. Think of like Jonathan Mike, The Rock, like just some of these guys that are just, they have to turn sideways through doors, right? For them to bring their hands all the way in here to hold a kettlebell, it forces internal rotation and impingement, right? So something that you can do, any handle works, but I think the angle 90 handles are really designed and they're perfect for this. You guys will hear me talk about these in every presentation I do. No, I don't get paid for them. No, I'm not an investor. No, I don't make commissions, but I talk about them enough. I think the product is great. That's why I literally have 6 pairs of them here in the gym, because I can attach them and do almost anything. Arthritically, they're a godsend. Like my clients that couldn't do anything in the weight room can do tons of stuff now because of these. So I love them. And because I talk about them a lot, they give me a discount code to give you guys. So if you want to buy some of these, they're $49. Use Linkle10 when you check out and you get 10% off. It saves you $7 with shipping and all that good stuff. All right, handles on. When I can do my upright, I can just pull so much further apart now to get that high pull position. It's so much more comfortable than having my hands in here, right? I mean, that's a good 6-7 inches, right? That I'm able to extend out. So you can do that. The hard part about 2 kettlebells is you don't get the separation anymore. So it's no longer an upright row, it's a high pull, which is just a different lift, which is still an awesome lift. One of my favorites, you take the weight to the outside, you hinge and high pull wide, right? Or you can just strict high pull them from here, but I let the weight drift a little bit as I perform that so I can get the counter up and back between my shoulder blades, right where I want it instead of forward or straight up. Like I want that counter of the weight up and back behind me. So you can do that. I just don't know about securing a weight or a band to it to get you the dual tension, if that would be beneficial. I would rather you do one, put extenders on there, and you can freely rotate those to whatever's comfortable. You know, I have some clients that will rotate. Let's see, what does Gary do? He goes palms in at the top and back to neutral. So he high pulls there, which really peaks up a lot of bicep. Like that's a solid row, you know, or an upright, but he can have the band pulling him forward. You don't have the direct tension to like secure against it like you do with play. You know what I mean? The band will move a little, but you still get the recruitment. You still get the same involvement. So I think that would be a good addition there if you could swing that. Let me put in angles90.com and use Linkle10. Here's your code there if you guys want to get some. Yeah, Lynn, Angles 90 grips are the bomb. They're really good. I attach them for swings. I attach them for all of my deadlifts. You can hook them to everything. This long lever, not to make this a promo video for them, but one of my faves, you'll see this tomorrow or Thursday too. Just a longer lever, a more patient swing, but I can keep my shoulders, pulled back into that neutral position. And I kind of like it. It makes your client wait because it's longer. It's a little slower. Like it makes them wait and stretch their hamstrings. It's a good hinge. All right. Kettlebell row for clients with no bench. Same action. Chair. Okay. So have them do chair like that, and they just hinge, place their hand or their fist on the chair, pull back, boom. Okay, they can do this. Where I'm a fan of having 3 points, I think you have to have 3 points. When you start doing these guys, I see people do this, where they hug their own rib or their other hand goes behind their back. Where's all the pressure countered from now? If all this weight's pulling me down and forward, what's the opposite of down and forward? Like straight through my lumbar. So everything now is just, I gotta stay, and I know we wanna build strength there, I get that, but just putting your hand there, like it just takes so much pressure off your back. And now I can just focus on the row. If I wanna do like anti-flexion work for my back, I'll do a different exercise, right? But this guy, my target here is to recruit more at the shoulder. So I wanna have this support. I think that third point of contact is super important, super important. All right, elbow pain with bench. Would the dual tension help or aggravate? Depends on the elbow, meaning like what injury you have. Tennis elbow. So supination with load would probably feel better. Golfer elbow inside pronation with load would probably not. So if your client does the whole, like when I go to pick up the stapler or the frying pan or whatever, and it hurts their elbow that way, I probably wouldn't dual tension that, because there's a little tiny muscle in your elbow called the aconius. It does the last 15 degrees of extension. That little guy is basically really aggravated, and then the tendons around that are get like super hypertensive when you have tennis elbow. And so to create that engagement would be fine, but if you're rotating while you do that, that could really aggravate and kind of hurt it. So if you're gonna do just a neutral grip bench press or the 45 degree with dual tension, shouldn't bother them. As long as bench pressing alone doesn't bother them, putting the band on shouldn't hurt, it'll only help. But if you're gonna rotate, that might, okay? But I'll tell you, those clients that have shoulder stuff going and they can't bench, give them some 5s or some light weights and just let them try like a rotational floor press. Start at the top, laying on the floor. They can rotate and their elbows will hit right there, right? They won't be able to go any further because they hit the floor, but they can just work that little neutral to external rotation of the shoulder and to see if you can start getting a little horizontal pushing for them. Not that it's a super important action for us to train. I don't have to train that every day, but I like to bench. I think everybody likes to bench. And that's kind of a fun lift to do. I'm not anti-bench. It's just not a recruitment for me to do in every workout where I see a client, I have other stuff that's more valuable for them. But that isn't an angle that we need to attack. So I think finding a way to make them comfortable in doing that is pretty valuable. All right, any other questions? I don't think I saw anything on there. For the shoulder press, do you use a neutral grip? Yes. Neutral or 45 would be fine, not pronated. Again, I'm just not a fan of that pronated grip position. Some people will argue it and differ, and that's cool. I just think there's like a prying force, I guess would be the best way to say it. Like when you get so far out on bench or so far out with the overhead, there's kind of a prying force at the shoulder. Not where it's obviously not going to dislocate or anything like that, but you've got so many moving pieces in there that like fully external rotation position under deep stress, it just seems to kind of pry at the shoulder, like it's trying to lever out, to get out from under the AC joint or to come forward out of the clavicle, you know what I mean? Like it's just not a comfortable, it's kind of a grindy feeling for me. So I find most clients are really comfortable just staying in track here. couple of injuries here and there where they won't. The 45 might be more comfortable. Just, you know, comfort is key. 99% of the time, 95% of the time, if the client does an action and it doesn't hurt, that's okay. Rarely will you do something, it doesn't hurt them, and there's this residual blow up later on. That's like an ACL injuries, lower back discectomy injuries, like that kind of thing. Herniations can do that, but typically they'll feel a little something while they're doing it, and then later on it blows up. So I don't think you should have a huge concern, neutral or 45 degrees, but the 90, I don't really see a huge value of like, this is gonna get exactly what I want so much better that I would go that way. All right. I was biting into a cookie when you said that. Nice. Yeah, I like cookies. They're good. Came in a bit late. Excellent so far. Yes, there will be a recording. Good. The upright row can use 2 kettlebells. Got it. All right, I think I covered them all. Any other questions? Now is the time. I'm happy to stick around and answer. If not, I will see you on Thursday. Same bat time, same bat channel. And if you have any other questions between now and then, please feel free to pop over to the website, trainingtheolderadult.com. I am happy to show you guys around there too on Thursday. If anybody wants a little tour of the website, I'll take you over there. Remember, this is part of Education Month. So we're doing our diaries tomorrow at 10. That's on Facebook Live. So make sure you're following me if you're not, so you can pop on there and see it. I will post a recording of that on our YouTube channel, which is my name, Robert Linkle, after that. And then Thursday, we have the other half of this guy. And then next week, Evan Osar, Christian Thompson are both coming on to talk with me. And we're doing diaries number 2 next Wednesday. So we got a lot of good stuff. If you haven't signed up for Education Month yet, it's free. Go onto the website, trainingtheolderadult.com. The very top under courses, click on there and you will see it. We'd love to have you guys join us the whole month. And then we have, I think July is our next one, and then November. Yeah, I think November is the other one. So we have 3 of them this year. All right, gang. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much. I love you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.